Hi, Papa Yeager here with This Day in History. February 3rd, 1870, the states ratify the 15th Amendment, which guarantees the right to vote to men regardless of race, color, or previous servitude. In essence, this is the amendment that gave former slaves the right to vote. The right to vote, the Civil War ended in 1865. Slaves were freed with the 13th Amendment. However, the government was still trying to sort through how are they going to allow former slaves to have to be active members of the political process. Many of the Reconstruction Acts forced the South to allow former slaves to vote. Of course, they weren't happy about this. But the big problem was they were forcing the South to require former slaves to vote when the majority of northern states denied the right to vote to black men. So the North may not have had slavery. They may have been proponents of freeing the slaves, but they were still not there. They were still not equal. They were not willing to be equal. So when Grant took office, he was elected in 1868, took office in 1869, Congress passed the 15th Amendment, which was going to require former slaves to vote. The problem was they needed 3/4 of the states to agree in order to ratify it, but they weren't getting enough. They had several Republican states, a couple of Democratic states, but they didn't have what was required. So they finagled like they always do in politics, and they forced southern states that had seceded to ratify both the 14th and 15th Amendment as a condition to be readmitted into the Union. The 14th Amendment is what was birthright citizenship. If you were born in this country, you were a citizen. It gave former slaves the right to citizenship. The 15th Amendment gave them the right to vote. With this, forcing the southern states to ratify, it finally got ratified. They finally passed it, and the 15th Amendment went into effect on February 3rd, 1870. However, just because the South was forced into agreeing to the 15th Amendment didn't mean they were going to adhere to it. After this, you had the rise of the KKK. You had poll tax. You had literacy tests. You had all different ways that the South connived in order to deny black men the right to vote. This went on for essentially a century. It wasn't until Johnson came along with his civil rights movement and signing legislation in the 1960s that things started to change a little bit. But on paper, former slaves, black men, got the right to vote in 1870. Women would have to wait another half a century. They would have to wait until 1920 to get the right to vote. So that's This Day in History, February 3rd, 1870. The 15th Amendment is passed. I just want to bring this up. Again, we are in troubled times in America. The government right now is once again trying to whittle away rights that minorities have worked so hard to attain. This is problematic. We are going backwards. We struggled so hard to get to where we were, and we still didn't have a point of complete equality. Now we're going back. We need to do something to stop this. We need to raise awareness. The taking away of DEI programs and other things that the government is doing is going to harm minorities. But once minorities are hurt, everybody ultimately in the end gets hurt.